For 5 years, a hidden gem inspired by Armored Core has been taking shape, and most of us didn't even know.
Machineclad is a solo project based out of Japan that takes the best elements of each generation of Armored Core and makes them work exceptionally well together. If you're a veteran to the series, I can almost guarantee that playing through this will hit like the Ratatouille flashback sequence as you play through the fair amount of missions and arena combatants currently available. I was actually able to get in contact with the developer Redhu and ask them some questions about the game, their influences, and what's in store for the future of Machineclad, but we'll round back to that a little bit later. Now do note that the game isn't currently available on Steam, though that is something they're aiming for this summer. If you're interested in playing Machineclad right away, you would either need to subscribe to their Pixiv or make a one-time purchase on their booth for 1,000 yen, which is roughly $6-7, and it's 100% worth it. It is currently in version 0.10.3, which as of writing the script was done about just under a month ago and just added melee canceling, new weapons, part balancing, and more. So let's look at what all this game has to offer in its current state. To start off, you either go through or skip the tutorial before you're given a loadout that's all too familiar with the machine gun, energy blade, missile combo. From there, you can be like me and take 10 plus minutes trying to decide on a color scheme, or go straight into the missions, or even arena. The first mission, Eliminate Desert Squatters, is a very straightforward area where you'll take out a handful of tanks and turrets to get your bearings, which serves its purpose, but I think this could be touched up a little bit. I'll follow up on that more with my overall feedback at the end. After completing the mission, you'll be given a rank based on the usual stats like the amount of ammo you spent and damage you took, which also impact your overall payout. You also unlock some new parts for both your frames and your weapons to spend it on, but you might have noticed something missing from the shop. There is a distinct lack of internal parts, so let's talk about how they changed their approach on that altogether. In Machineclad, boosters are actually built into your legs, just like AC6 tank legs. Currently, there are 3 types of legs, that being bipedal, reverse joint, and tetrapod, each having pros and cons, including
The infamous turn speed.
bipeds strike a balance between the other types and offer the most variety in both weight classes and functionality. Reverse joints are going to excel at aerial combat with not only their jumps, but their very impressive vertical thrusts. However, they have the lowest turn speed of the 3 archetypes. Tetrapods, on the other hand, have the worst vertical capabilities of the 3, but make up for it with exceptional stability and carrying capacity on top of good turning speed. Now, as you could probably guess, your generator is built into your core, which not only outlines your energy stats, but your heat limit and the expansion slots as well. And for those of you out there who aren't familiar with the heat mechanics or optional parts, essentially optional parts were just a little bit of fine tuning you could do that was based off of the amount of expansion slots you had in your core. Heat was a mechanic that was introduced in Gen 2 that, depending on which game you play, could sap your health or energy if you were overheating. Thankfully, in Machineclad, heat is really just tied into damage that you receive, and even then, I really didn't have to worry about micromanaging it at all. Now, as for FCS, it's split between your head and your arms. Sorta. While we didn't have this in AC6, your lock-on range, size, and assistance were all depicted by your head, meanwhile your accuracy relied on your arms. But did you notice anything else different about the arms? Well, if you still haven't noticed, they're asymmetric, and that is not a specific set of arms. These are 2 separate arms that I specifically chose for the weapons they're holding. The right arm is holding a railgun that fires in 3-round bursts, or it can charge up to fire a single round that hits much harder and faster, so I went with the Nebula since it has a really good accuracy assist, recoil control, and charge assist. For my left arm, since I'm using a melee weapon, I went with the Rosa light type because it's basically the Basho arm of this game with the highest melee power assist, but there's definitely others that are perfectly viable to melee with. Defensively, the stats have the typical set of AP for health and kinetic and special for damage, though interestingly enough, explosive is just tied in with kinetic. Now, there is another stat that each frame part contributes to. Sigma cloak. Is this a cloak? I don't know if this is a cloak. Now, Sigma Cloaks is probably one of my favorite mechanics of the game, as it works a lot like 4th gen primal armor, but with a little more leniency on how it interacts with combat. So while we're on that note, let's take this opportunity to segue into the game's mechanics. If we take a look at the HUD here, you'll notice that we have 3 vertical bars, with the green being your health, the blue being your energy, and the white being tied to both Sigma Cloak and the overboost gauge. As you take damage, your cloak will lose some of its integrity, leaving behind an orange bar that can be quickly replenished, while the gray area is kind of semi-permanent until you avoid damage for long enough. Now, overboosting is interesting in this, as like 5th gen, it also has to be done while grounded, and while it consumes the white bar, it leaves behind a red one, which is sort of separate. Now, your cloak will break if you exhaust all of your energy overboosting or take too much damage, but if you're just taking damage, despite the white bar going down, you still have a full gauge to overboost with, and this includes if it fully breaks, giving you mobility options even if your cloak is gone. However, that's not the reason I said this is more lenient. The reason I said that is because while it's clearly based around primal armor, the speed at which it replenishes after breaking is much faster. The window is actually about the same duration as it would be for direct damage in AC6, you just won't get staggered and left wide open for punishment. This doesn't mean there isn't staggering though. Stop staggering me!
I got one more shot, don't worry.
It's just more like the older gens, as you'd only flinch for a second, then keep on going, and this was also possible while your cloak was still up. On the inside of your reticle, your vertical hitboxes represent your weapon cooldown, while the horizontal ones are the amount of ammo left in the magazine or your charge-up gauge depending on your weapon. The crosshairs in the middle actually show your weapon bloom as your weapon recoil builds up, which I think is a really nice touch as well.
Speaking of weapons, oh boy, is there a selection to choose from.
And each archetype has various styles within them. For the hands, you got assault rifles, machine guns, shotguns, energy versions of each, with some having plasma styles as well, a sniper rifle, 3 railguns, 2 energy blades, a physical blade, old school pile bunkers, and even more, while the back has all sorts of missiles on top of plasma cannons, drones, an extra set of boosters, and even a radar which actually works more like AC6's scan, allowing for you to set up your lock-on or even fire vertical missiles when an enemy is behind cover. Honestly, I'm really impressed at not only how big the arsenal of weapons available is, but how fleshed out they feel as well. While there's definitely some balancing to be had for various weapons, railguns, the intention in each weapon's design can definitely be felt, and I had a lot of fun experimenting with a ton of different builds. My main concern is that some of the weapons that just flat out bypass your cloak are a little bit too capable of doing so, especially while there is no form of warning or even knowing if your enemy is fully locked onto you. Don't get me wrong though, it has a fantastic foundation, and with some polish on things like audio and visual feedback, could have this game delivering an even more satisfying combat system than it already has. Now, when you were playing through Armored Core 6, did you ever feel like your arena opponents were pushovers? Well, I'm happy to say that the AI for the enemies in Machineclad are actually pretty competent and have a good assortment of builds to boot. On top of this, they actually gave all 32 enemies full-on backstories that are pretty solid too. Aerial Reaper was the one that gave my friends and I the most trouble so far, showing off just how strong the reverse joints could be, even with their lower turning speeds. Speaking of turning speeds, you can also do the 5th gen quick turn tech, where as long as you have some momentum on the ground, you can drop all your movement inputs and just turn the camera and get a much faster turn speed than you normally would for a brief window, allowing for a lot of skill expression with the movement. In truth, I don't think you need to learn how to master this or even use it if you really don't want to, unless you plan on really getting into PvP, as the base enemies and missions are more than feasible without it. Now, with that in mind, let's round back to the missions. While doing a good job capturing that older generation feel and having 2 really well done bosses, I find most of the missions to be a bit one note and just honestly short-lived. There's nothing inherently wrong with them, but in my opinion, they're the weakest part of Machineclad right now. I really think they could stand to make more engaging and impactful encounters on top of expanding the content within most of the missions currently available. And without a doubt, this is still very impressive for one developer, and missions like defending the front base actually pressed me to try out new builds and explore new options. Hell, I even enjoyed playing through them enough to S-rank every mission but one, find all the secret parts, beat the entire arena, and buy every part, and I think I can firmly say that Machineclad has all the potential to be a very successful title. If Redhu continues with the game's current direction and stays in touch with the community, I could easily see Machineclad becoming the people's champ of mecha games, especially in this time where, once again, FromSoft has left us in the dark with no real updates for Armored Core, while Bandai keeps a chokehold on all the good mecha IPs while only producing half-assed and/or predatory games that no one is happy with. But let's not worry about that right now and shift our focus over to the Q&A I had with Redhu before I close out the video with the last of my feedback. What is the current goal for the length of the game and the overall PvE content? Will it just be a campaign with missions, or are there possible plans for other modes like survival or defense where you'll fight waves of enemies? Overall, I'm aiming to include a little over 20 missions. As for other game modes, there's one I'm currently planning, but I can't share the details just yet. Are there any plans to include co-op for the PvE content? A lot of people want to join up with their friends without having to do PvP. At the moment, there's no plan for a co-op mode. Since I'm developing the game solo, it's difficult to design, balance, and plan for the kind of experience that co-op would require. It does seem like it would be a lot of fun if it could be done though. Are there any more PvP modes planned outside of 2v2s and Battle Royale? Maybe something objective based like Capture the Flag or King of the Hill? For PvP modes, the current plan includes one-on-one battles, team matches, and a Battle Royale format. That's about it for now. That said, I do feel it would be nice to have some game modes that aren't just about direct combat. When Machineclad comes to Steam, will it be an early access release, and what's the current estimate on the release date? I'm hoping to launch it on Steam through early access. I'm hoping to submit the necessary materials and open the store page sometime this summer. Are there plans for different styles of melee that attack differently? For example, lances or spears that stab, fists that punch, hammers that slam, etc. I have a few different styles of melee attacks planned. Since creating the animations is quite time consuming, you can expect there to be about 2 or 3. Will there be tank or float style legs? Due to heavy animation workload and the difficulty of balancing them properly, I don't currently have plans to include tank or hover legs, but if I can overcome those challenges, maybe someday? Are there any big changes or anything you'd like to let the people know are coming to the game in the future? Right now, development is focused on expanding the overall content of the game. While the core direction won't change much from the demo, there are still weapon types and other elements I haven't shown yet, so please look forward to them. Outside of Armored Core, are there any specific weapons or parts that were directly inspired from other media such as anime or video games? The arm weapons Dichotomous and Coleoptera are totally inspired by Metabots. I just really wanted to do it. Will there be any weapon arms, and if so, will there be both ranged and melee options? It's not included in the demo, but I've implemented a so-called weapon arm system. Each has 2 different weapon profiles, and you can switch between them using a purge command. Thank you again to Redhu for taking the time to get back to me and answer these questions. I'll have links to Machineclad and Redhu's socials in the description and the pinned comment. As for my thoughts on the game in its current state, honestly, I'm blown away by how well Machineclad captures the spirit of Armored Core. Redhu has made some fantastic design choices, pulling from the best parts of the series and making them work together in a cohesive fashion. That said, I do think the Sigma cloak system needs some rebalancing, especially how certain weapons interact with it. Right now, there's not much incentive to use weapons that focus on breaking the cloak when others just pierce right through it with little drawback. Railguns in particular feel a bit overtuned with no reloading, solid fire rate, and devastating charge shots that are nearly impossible to dodge. With such a diverse arsenal already in place, I'd love to see the cloak system tweaked to make more of those weapon types feel worthwhile. The other major area for improvement is mission design. While they do a great job capturing that classic feel, many missions could use more variety, more engaging layouts, and a sense of progression. For example, the first mission could easily be expanded to a longer route through the valley, with enemies on ridges or flanking positions to create more dynamic combat, and this idea isn't just for that stage. Almost all the missions could benefit from having a bit more depth to progression, enemy placement, and environmental design, but Redhu did say they were really working on content, so maybe this is something that is already being addressed. I really don't want this to overshadow what all this has to offer though, as even in this early state, Machineclad feels amazing to play and has led to some fun PvP matches between friends that have been simultaneously nostalgic and a breath of fresh air. I can't wait to see where Machineclad goes next, and I'll be eagerly awaiting every update that's to come. Thank you to everyone who watched this. I really appreciate those of you sticking out this long as well. Just seriously, thank you so much. I hope y'all take care and have a wonderful day now. Peace!